I'm Jay, and the tune I play is Chastise from the Aragos realm. My main tune is a priest and GM of the raiding guild Honor Amongst Thieves. I've had a few fellow tanks ask for advice on rotation and aggro hold against the high DPS numbers in today's raids, and tanking TOC and ICC, a high amount of stamina is necessary for any tank, so we don't have the luxury of gemming for massive amounts of strength to hold our aggro. So the purpose of this video is to give a brief explanation of what I found to be a solid tanking rotation as a prop paladin. It's definitely not something I came up with, but the 969 rotation has been around well before I have. As you can see, my gear isn't totally uber, mostly eye level 245s with it, which is a little bit above average for this point in the game considering ICC was just released a few days ago. I gem for straight stamina in any socket that doesn't have a worthwhile socket bonus, so once again perfecting my rotation is critical, especially since I don't gem for threat. I do have mitigation pieces that I can swap out for, but my healers usually prefer that I stick with stamina. My unbuffed health sits around 41,000, usually with 25-man buffs it'll go up above 50, and obviously my blessing of choice is Blessing of Sanctuary, along with the Seal of Vengeance obviously for the constant ticks that it does on the bosses. You can see in my UI that I put all of the attacks that I use for the 969 rotation elevated above the other attacks, but usually in a raid they're sitting down with the other buttons. First thing about aggro that I want to cover was that most paladins start with Avenger's Shield for their pull, which is good for multiple mob packs. But for single targets and raid bosses, if you can get in range without actually initiating the fight, the best way to front load your aggro is actually to start with your Hand of Reckoning taunt. The reason for this is that your taunt will actually do damage to the enemy that doesn't have you targeted. Follow this up immediately with the Avenger's Shield, and you will have front loaded a ton of threat right off the bat. Most raid bosses will allow you to get within taunt range without aggroing, although there are exceptions like Onyxia, Malagos, and Yogg-Saron. For those encounters, Avenger's Shield would be your attack of choice. If you have overeager or crit happy DPS, the Hand of Reckoning first technique really helps in making sure that you have plenty of threat generation right off the bat as you kite the boss into tanking position. Let's go find a druid to beat on to demonstrate the taunt and Avenger's Shield pull. As you can see on this pull, the taunt actually did more damage than the Avenger's Shield. Obviously that extra generation of threat will come in handy for your raid. The 969 rotation is called so because you alternate your attacks between those with the 9-second cooldown and those with the 6-second cooldown. Doing so properly will ensure that you are always attacking and generating additional threat, with no wasted time in between cooldowns. Like any other type of rotation, once you get the hang of it, you can adjust it to suit your needs, or throw in additional attacks to have a much longer cooldown, such as Avenger's Shield, or even Holy Wrath for Undead. I have separated the two types of attacks on my UI to demonstrate alternating between the two. Let's find an elite mob that can take a punch so I can demonstrate. We will of course start the pull with the Hand of Reckoning taunt and Avenger's Shield. When tanking multiple targets against AoE DPS, your Consecration, Hammer of Righteousness, and even occasional tab targeting will be plenty of damage to hold your mobs. As you can see, alternating between the 9 and 6-second cooldowns will mean that there is always an attack becoming ready. If you perfect this rotation, you will have no problems holding aggro against raiders that triple your actual DPS output as a tank.